What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to talk to you about how you should be training in order to maximize hypertrophy or muscle growth as much as you possibly can. So when we talk about hypertrophy, which just means muscle growth or building actual lean muscle, there's a few things that we need to concentrate on, make sure that we're getting right in order to maximize our possible results. So there is 6 things that we need to consider when we're thinking about maximizing our muscle growth. Number 1 is the type of training that we're doing. The actual physical movements, the actual physical exercise that we're doing. 2, training frequency. So this means how many times a week or how many sets per week we're doing for each muscle group. Number 3, the rep range that we're working in for our specific exercises and muscle groups. 4, the intensity at which we're doing these exercises. So our RPE, our RIR, and how close we're training to failure. Number 5 is the consistency and measurement of our results. This means how consistent we're sticking to something, how consistently we're doing the same movements and the same exercises, and how well we're tracking our progress. Number 6 is rest. The way that we're giving our body a chance to rest, recover, in order to be able to then improve performance the next time we do that exercise, do that workout. Okay, type. Now, when I'm saying type, I'm talking about what actual physical exercises we're doing, okay? So this is something that for a lot of beginners, a lot of people that don't really know the science behind exercise science or the way our body works, the way that our muscles react to certain stimulus, it can be very tricky, and you'll see a lot of people on Instagram or YouTube doing some backflip, kickback, glute exercise that will be perceived to be really beneficial, but is honestly only doing a tiny little amount of the work, okay? So what I'm getting at here is we want to really utilize our compound movements, okay? Compound movements are exercises that use a multiple or multitude of muscle groups, okay? So for example, a compound movement like a squat, we're using our quads, we're using our glutes, we're using some of our posterior chain or our lower back, and it's not just focusing solely on one specific muscle group, okay? So what are some other compound movements? So our bench press, our military press, our deadlift, okay? These are, or these should be, the foundations of our programs and our muscle building phases, muscle building exercises that we're utilizing, okay? Our accessory movements, glute kickbacks, our pec deck, okay? These should be used in conjunction with our compound movements, okay? These are exercises that specifically target one small muscle group or one part of a muscle group. So in order to utilize these, in order to get the most out of these, they need to be used in conjunction or as an accessory to our compound movements or our bigger, more dominant movements within our fitness programs, okay? Number 2 is frequency. The way that the scientific community or the scientific sporting and fitness community talk about frequency is sets per week, okay? So whilst most fitness people do talk about how many times you're hitting a muscle group per week, the best way to look at it is how many sets per week you're doing per muscle group, okay? Now, I don't mean sets. So if you do 3 warm-up sets and then 2 working sets, that wouldn't equal 5 sets. I'm talking about the amount of working sets per week you're doing. There is a little graph, and I'll put it up here, that looks like this. The curve is like this, okay? So as you can see on this axis, we have sets per week, and on this axis, we have results, okay? So as you can see, if we're starting in the bottom left, as sets per week increase, so do our results, okay? Our muscle building increases. So, as you can see, when you get to about 10 sets per week, it starts to taper off, okay? So, what this means is, we want to be hitting each muscle group with at least, as the absolute minimum, of 10 working sets per week, okay? So, what this also means is, as you can see on the graph, there is very little difference between 10 working sets and 20 working sets, okay? So if we're working inside those, we should be maximizing our muscle growth for that specific muscle group. Try and train every muscle group twice per week, okay? Because it lets us get in those minimum 10 working sets per week. Okay, number 3, rep range. Now this is something that is really highly debated amongst the scientific community and probably the bro community or the fitness community. And that is, how many reps should we be training in, or the rep range we should be training in order to maximize hypertrophy. Okay? Now, the consensus or the majority of people say that this is from 8 through to 15, okay? Now, does that mean that if we go less than 8 or more than 15, we aren't going to grow muscle? No, okay? But this seems to be the ideal rep range, okay? So for things below 8, we're focusing more on strength, short, sharp, explosive movements where we're trying to lift heavy to increase our strength. And after that 15, our body sort of clicks into endurance mode. So we want to try to stay within those 8 to 15 rep ranges as much as possible in order to maximize muscle hypertrophy, okay? Okay, number 4, and the most important in my opinion, that is intensity, okay? Now, I spoke about this before, but when I say intensity, I don't mean getting off the bench press, sprinting over to the leg extensions, pumping at as many reps as possible, okay? That's not intensity. What we're talking about intensity is we're talking about how close we are going to failure, okay? Now there's 2 terms that you need to understand that the science community or the science fitness community really use and what we measure intensity against, okay? They are RPE, or our rate of perceived exertion. So what this means is how close we are going to failure, okay? So RPE is on a scale of 1 to 10, okay? If you do a bench press and you perceive it to be an RPE of 8, that would mean that you would still be able to do 2 reps of that weight before you hit failure, okay? The other term is RIR, okay? So this is reps in reserve. Now this is exactly opposite or exact inverse of RPE, okay? So what this means is how many reps we would have in reserve at a certain weight. So for example, if we might be doing a bench press at 60 kilos, we do 8 reps at that, we would have 2 reps in reserve, okay? If we think that we could do that weight for 10 reps. So here's a little table of how it works. So as you can see, an RPE of 8 would be a RIR of 2, okay? So they're exactly inverse. Now, what does this mean? How do we utilize this? What I like to do is I like to do 3 or 4 warm-up sets or build-up sets to my working weight, and then pick a weight that I will be hitting at least an RPE of 8 or an RPE of 9. So what that means again, means that I would have 2 reps left in the tank before I physically can't do the weight anymore. If we can train close to failure, it is going to maximize the muscle stimulus and maximize the muscle growth. Number 5, consistency and our measurement, okay? Now what I mean by this is how often we're doing the same exercises, how well we're tracking our progress, okay? So the reason why programs are so important, and it's so important to follow something, is if we're chopping and changing every session, or we're going in, we're doing this session on Monday, and then the next Monday or the next time we're doing that muscle group, we're doing a completely different set of exercises, is we don't give our body a chance to maximize those exercises for muscle growth. So what happens when we're exercising, or what happens when we're lifting weights, is that over time our body adapts to exercises, okay? This is why most programs will follow a 4, 5 or 6 week cycle where they do the same exercises on repeat each week or each session, whatever it may be, in order to maximize the possible results from that exercise. And then at the end of the 4 weeks, we would switch it up, provide new stimulus, which would then start the process over, okay? Go back to the start, try and get stronger, try and progress through those exercises. Track your progress, stay consistent with a program for 4 or 5 weeks before switching it up. This way we can track how well we're going and also be sure that we're getting the most value for money in terms of the exercises that we're doing. Number 6, and something that is always overlooked, that is our rest, okay? So what I mean by this is the sleep we're getting, the recovery we're allowing our body to have, the nutrition that we're getting in order to fuel our body, okay? So starting from the start, sleep. If we aren't getting enough sleep, we won't grow muscle in the most efficient and effective way, okay? When we go to the gym, our muscles break down. The only time that these muscles actually repair, recover, and rebuild is when we are sleeping, okay? If you're not getting 6, 7, or 8 hours sleep, you're not going to be maximizing your recovery. Your muscles are going to be non-recovered, and then therefore you will not be able to perform in the gym the next session or the next time you work that muscle group. This might not sound like the biggest issue, but if we can't train with the most intensity and to the best of our ability, we will not be able to put on the muscle that we want to. Sleep is so undervalued, and it is honestly so important, okay? The last one, nutrition, okay? Getting a good body is 80% nutrition. If you aren't fueling your body with the right nutrients, the right macros, the right foods to recover, you will not grow muscle, okay? You need to be hitting your protein. You need to be getting in 2.5 grams per kilo of lean body mass at a minimum, okay? Get in your micronutrients, get in your vitamins, get in your minerals, get in the things that support muscle growth as much as you possibly can. If you need to supplement, okay? A well-balanced diet with a high nutritional profile, high micronutrients, high vitamins, high minerals that hit your macros is 100% necessary if you want to achieve the results that you want to achieve, okay? So, in order to grow the most amount of muscle, your diet needs to be on point. Okay guys, just a little sum up. So, there is 6 things we need to make sure that we're maximizing. The way we're training, so the movements that we're doing, okay? Frequency, we want to be hitting at least 10 working sets per muscle group per week in order to maximize hypertrophy. Number 3 is our intensity. We want to be going close to failure, okay? We don't want to be dawdling around the gym and doing stuff that's easy for us just to get through it. We need to push close to failure to maximize muscle growth. Number 4, our rep range. We want to stay or try to stay within the 8 to 15 rep range in order to increase or maximize our muscle hypertrophy. Number 5, consistency and measurement. Stick to a program. Do the same exercises for 4 or 5 weeks, maximize muscle growth with those exercises, and then move on to something new. Number 6 is rest. Make sure you are resting, make sure that you're sleeping, and make sure your nutrition is on point. These need to be locked in and almost perfect in order to maximize our muscle growth or our muscle hypertrophy. Alright guys, I hope you've taken something away from that. I know this is a bit more of a meaty video, a little bit more educational, but I hope you can take something away from this. Please write these down, take notes, go and implement them. I promise you, your muscle growth journey or your muscle growth goals will exceed anything that you've seen in the past. Make sure that you're ticking them off every day, thinking about them every session. I hope that you've taken something away from this. If you have, please like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. 1,000 words ain't enough to define the body of, yeah. Gotta look and she wants